episode of the Adeptus podcast. My name is DK Diamantes. His name is Bricky, and once more into the breach. But before we do that, if you enjoyed today's episode and maybe you want to support us, head over to patreon.com/Adeptus Ridiculous, where you can get access to the Discord, bloopers if they happen. $15 tier gets you access to all of our posters in crispy digital HD format. It's great. Check it out. Patreon.com/Adeptus Ridiculous. Bricky, how are you?
I am better than I was. I got a little sniffly still. I think it's very annoying because I'm apparently not contagious or anything, but it just means that if I get like a con crud, I'll have the nasal drip for like a week and a half. I tell you, ever since COVID, all these sicknesses last a little longer. Whatever havoc has been wreaked, my system, I don't know. It's a thing. Anywho, go check out the merchandise down at orchid8.com. Check it out down below. Got some posters, dice, some really cool stuff. Pretty good. I do remember, yes, Shai mentioned the comments were pretty funny. I remember seeing one which is like hearing Bricky sounds like his eyes are blinking individually.
I love all of the eyes blinking individually gifs. Those are some of my favorites.
Some lizard eyes looking ass stuff, yeah. But check out the merch.
Bricky licking his own eyes.
Check out the merch down below. We got probably some new stuff coming sometime in the spring, and it'll be very exciting. But if you're looking to get yourself some dice and things, check it out.
Hell yeah.
DK, sir.
Me. Hi.
Attention.
Hi. Yeah. I'm here. I'm awake. It is morning. We're here. Let's go.
All right. We have an episode today, as you know. And
Is that what we're doing?
That's what I know, right, dude? We're swapping things up today. Now, I would normally give you a quote, but so you may know that we recently hired a new ghostwriter, like researcher, helper with that stuff, you know. And for today's episode, they helped lore expert. I
thought that was your job. What happened?
I got the bachelor's. He has like the PhD.
Okay.
No, at this point, I feel like I could probably have a master's, but not a PhD. Also, they also have more time than I do. But they, for today's episode, have helped us put together something very, very special in lieu of a quote. Shai, if you would like to present the goods. A song.
Whoa!
And this song was recorded specifically for us by the choir's singer, Abby Hadley. It is a canon song from a recent official Black Library book.
Okay.
Okay, indeed.
That's pretty fucking cool. Am I listening to it? Okay.
On the count of 3, sir, we will click the play button. On 1, 2, 3.
Come the time and come the need, come the peril and the darkness. We have come to hearken our heartland's call from the far corners of the void. Heartland, together standing strong. One kin, as one kin, will hearken the heart's call. From the mighty gleam of forges, from the distant halls of Votann, from the care of crucible and council place, from the far corners of the void. Heartland, together standing strong. One kin, as one kin, will hearken the of stone and fists breaking, vowing always to be as one. We will fight until we can fight no more. From the four far corners of the void, Hearthland, Hearthland, together standing strong. One kin, as one kin, will hearken the hearth's call.
Wow.
Yes. Can you guess what the episode is on?
Nope. But
Are you kidding me? Is that a joke? Are you joking?
yeah.
Should we have had subtitles?
Well, I just.
Here's the subtitles. Here's the subtitles. Look at it. Look at it. No. You don't just nothing. Look at it now.
Okay.
Read, DK, read.
Okay. I'm assuming it's a Votann episode.
Yes.
Yeah, that's crazy good though.
No, you don't. She did a great goddamn job. Yes, it's a Votann episode. God damn it. I'm upset now, but I'm gonna try to translate it. They say the word Votann in the song.
Okay. Chill out. You'll be okay. You'll be all right.
The Votann song is from the newest book, The High Call's Oath by Gav Thorpe. It's called The Call of the Hearth. And if you are Irish and currently screaming at the screen, you are correct. This is literally the real-life Irish song, Ireland's Call, with somewhat changed lyrics. So Abby Hadley, thank you again a million for making the recording for us. Perhaps Gav Thorpe's writing of this song is maybe perhaps a little more on the nose than expected. But hey, you know what? It's fine. Whatever.
Yeah, I was sufficiently blown away by that. So, whew.
Yes. So yes, it is a Votann episode today. So of course we have done 4 episodes on the Votann so far. The first episode we have done was on the squats, which you headed. Well, I think it was the first episode you headed, right?
Yeah, that was the first time I ever led an episode.
Hell yeah. And they're actually, and funny enough, they're like back, like the squats themselves are back now too. They're in like Necromunda, I think. The second one was the Votann returning as a new faction army. Mm-hmm. Then there was the Codex and the things that you learned from it themselves. And then the fourth episode was when we discussed the various like individual leagues, the various leagues themselves. However, for the most part, they kind of just went by the wayside. They were introduced in 9th edition, then 10th edition came out, and they just kind of were chucked to the side for a bit. Like they were around, but like not a lot. And then they just recently had a couple of appearances in the Dawn of Fire novels, but they got their first ever standalone novel called The High Call's Oath, written by Gav Thorpe, who Gav Thorpe has a pretty astonishingly large amount of novels in the Black Library.
Okay.
His stuff has been, I think, mostly decent, but a bit mixed depending on the faction that they're writing. But in this situation, he's very often the guy you go to flesh stuff out a bit more.
Okay. Have we read any of his stuff for book clubs and whatnot?
I get the vibe we have at least once, but I'm not 100% sure. Gav Thorpe novels. Maybe we haven't actually.
Yeah, the name doesn't strike me as super familiar, but it feels like if he's the person you go to flesh stuff out, surely we've touched on something he's done.
I mean, I don't think we have, actually. Not from what I'm seeing. He definitely, like, if you ever looked at the cover of a 40K book and you're like, yep, that's a Warhammer novel, definitely Gav Thorpe was one of those folks who wrote it.
Okay.
Because if you look at his list, you're like, oh yeah, it's quite a lot. A lot of Dark Angels, a couple other, there's a lot of stuff. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So with this was the first time it was any Votann book. There was obviously a lot more about it. We spoke a little bit with the Warhammer podcast as well, and Brad was reading this book too. And it's very, very light on like general story, a bit meandery, but it's very like lore. It's very much more lore focused and kind of getting you into the nitty gritty of the culture.
So more informative, less sort of narrative.
Yeah, this is like Gaunt's Ghost doesn't really need to go super hard into the formation of the Imperial Guard. You kind of already get it.
Yeah.
And so you go harder into the characters. This one, you kind of need that formation.
Yeah.
So
there haven't been too many backbone lore issues about the Votann, so you kind of need that structure.
Yeah, and so this is going to be an episode kind of going through a lot of the book and what was mentioned there. Some of it's rather fascinating. Some of it is stuff you already know. But so some of it may be redundant, but it's how it goes.
Okay.
To go into it, we got to start off obviously with the pre-kin history, the pillars and the truths. So, as you know, the kin are what, I mean, this is a bit of a refresher, but the kin are what the Votann, the dwarves, that's what they call themselves. They're known as the kin, because they are the kin of the Votann. And a Votann is...
me? Votann is the space dwarf, squat, engineers, miners...
No,
soldiers,
the
whole lot.
Specifically, what a Votann is. Okay, it's a good thing we're refreshing.
Yeah. I know they have like the ancestral like big supercomputer AIs. Are those actually like called Votanns?
Yes.
Those like the ancestor computers?
Yes. So the ancestor computers are Votanns. That's why they are the Leagues of Votann. Because the actual squats themselves, the dwarves themselves, they are kin.
Okay.
So kin, the squats, Votann, the big core. Yeah. So the origin of the kin themselves, the squats, the dwarves, they start at some point, obviously, during the Dark Age of technology, but like even with the book, like most things, everything back then during the Dark Age is contradictory, muddied. Imperial history has always got its own issues.
I vaguely remember that nobody really knows where these Votanns came from. Nobody's really sure how they work, but we're pretty sure they're probably heretical tech that the Empire, if they found out about it, it would be none too happy that they exist.
Damn, he really is fantasy coded. He's calling them the Empire and everything. Dang.
Jeez.
The rift between sci-fi and fantasy grows larger.
If the Imperium found out about the Votann, they would be none too pleased about it.
Yes. Now, of course, the kin's earliest origins were very likely on Terra, obviously as the first ancestors. But the phrase first ancestors is also a bit of a catch-all. It can refer to the actual machine kind of cogitators. It can refer to the humans themselves as like humanity. It's very muddled and very kind of contradictory, but in like a more of a meta sense, you and I know that the dwarves are offshoots of the original humans from the Dark Age technology.
Yep. I think in squat history anyway, like way back from what I remember, it was like, yeah, everybody's branching out. These are the humans that went to the Galactic Core. Gravity is in the Galactic Core, so they just evolve into dwarfs.
Kind of somewhat similar, but a little different, obviously, here. But obviously, when they were heading to the Galactic Core itself, The first thing that was very important to send them there on those generational ships were the ability to, know what the hell you were doing. So they brought 20, exactly 20 highly advanced AI supercomputers with literally everything you could ever need. Technical guidance, schematics, philosophical guidance, and most importantly, the ability to upload the mind of a deceased explorer to gather data and provide learned experiences for the AI to work with.
Ooh, that's a big one. That's huge.
So if a kin, for example, died doing whatever, you could upload their brain to the Votann, the supercomputer, and therefore gain basically all of their memories, ideals, and understandings and everything from that. Now, I would assume a headshot makes this a bit tougher, but hey,
Hey, who knows? Maybe they have that Kingsman thing where they put the little frosty pack over your eyes and it regenerates the brain enough to...
That was pretty funny, yeah. I hate Kingsman 2 with a burning passion. It was so shit.
So we need to bring Harry back, but we headshotted him in the last movie. How do we do it? Cold pack, punk.
Yeah. It was really shit. Anyway, so the very early history of the kin is something that's known as the first truths. Now these are doctrines of history that are indisputable and are generally hardwired into the history of the kin. One of the first truths is that they did in fact leave their homeworld and they are not native to the Galactic Core. There's also a truth that they are originally early miners and craftsmen and specialists with, quote, charged with exploiting the riches of the heavens. There are other truths out there, but they're not quite known yet.
Okay.
And then lastly, there are the 4 pillars of kin society. We talked a bit about this in the kin in the episode on the Votann specifically, but the first is like the hearth, which is the burning reactor of power. The second pillar is the forge. The third pillar is the fane. The fane is where the Grimnir speak with the Votann. And the fourth is the crucible. Do you remember what the crucible is?
Man, I am really glad we're doing a Votann episode because I have lost a lot of this.
The crucible is their cloning machines.
Makes sense.
To bring them back, their place of their birth. Now, an important thing to note is the Galactic Core, right? Like, why are we going there?
The Galactic Core. Why are we heading there? What's over there?
Why are we going to the Galactic Core? I mean, it's a genuine point to make. Now, obviously, 40K is in the Milky Way.
Mm-hmm.
And it does resemble our galaxy in a lot of ways. With liberties, but
Sure.
Now, in the real world, the Milky Way galaxy has, a lot of stars. The highest cluster of supergiants in known space, which makes the area very bright and a prime location for a ton of celestial bodies to orbit it. The center of the galaxy also is presumed to have a supermassive black hole. And as we have become more advanced in our personal modern-day society, there's more evidence that the center of the galaxy is massively chaotic and extremely unpredictable, including things like random bursts of gamma radiation, gigantic X-ray flares, and huge high-velocity interstellar clouds with God knows what chemical composition. It makes the Galactic Core to be, pretty volatile at minimum.
Yeah, pretty dangerous. But, I would have to assume that in the Galactic Core, if I was a Votann or a kin or whatever, I would probably want to go to the Galactic Core because there's got to be something there that you can't mine anywhere else, super valuable, super profitable, or it's probably one of the better places to go if you're doing some heretical shit too.
That is all basically the same in the world of 40. Oh, and there could be a collector base there.
Mass Effect references. You love to see it.
You love to see it. Now, in 40K, the Galactic Core is basically the exact same as I just described. It is exceptionally resource abundant, but most particularly basically untouched and uncharted. This does include a ton of terrors in the Galactic Core, including roving bands of asteroid belts and, I quote, sentient nebula, whatever that means.
Oh, that sound in the world of 40K, that sounds like it could be one of the biggest nightmares ever.
Yes, so in the Galactic Core there is sentient nebula. So we'll just put a pin in that one.
Let your imagination run wild with that.
One of the biggest difficulties is that due to the insane amount of anomalies in the core, warp travel is basically impossible. And because of this, there aren't that many species in the core. There are some lesser Xenos races in there. Orcs are there because they're everywhere. There are some pirates in the area, of course, but for the most part, it is massively abundant with stars, which means that there is basically no planet in there that doesn't, or that has a night. It's daytime all the time, including that image that Shai just posted. I mean, look at all the stars.
Wow, that is a crazy skyline.
Yeah, it's wild. Now, of course, if you are the Imperium and you don't fuck with that, you just don't bother to pierce the Galactic Core. So instead, you stick around the Maelstrom Zone. And the Maelstrom Zone is an area where they normally salvage a bunch of debris, floating rogue planets, things like that being flung from the actual core itself. Particularly, it's actually a really important place for a lot of staging grounds. So the Badab Wars were in the Maelstrom Zone.
Okay.
Currently, there's a bunch of Tyranid remnants from the devastation of Baal that are under siege around there. So, humorously, despite how awful the core is, it generally keeps shit out or keeps horrors in.
Yeah. And you're not doing any astropathic traveling in there. You're not like communing with the warp in there. You kind of gotta put all that aside if you're trying to go to the Galactic Core.
Yeah, basically. All this considered, the kin have actually settled quite well in the core. They have these things called holds, which are basically, places they live. This can be a space station, or it can be maybe some kind of hive city world of some sorts. There are lots of options there, but it all depends. The one that she just posted, like the one with all the lights, is one of them. I've never actually seen that photo, but that looks like a hold also. Yeah. Bunch of crazy Votann stuff going on there. But yeah, for the most part, like that's why you'd stick around in the Galactic Core for all of that juicy stuff, even though it kind of keeps itself insulated.
What sort of propulsion system do the Votann use? Because they're not using warp travel. Are they just engines, thrusters, type stuff?
So
I vaguely remember us talking about this, but I've lost a lot of it since last episode.
So they do. We'll get into that a little bit later.
Okay.
But we did talk about a little bit, but it's one of the various types of not as fast as the Imperium, but significantly safer because no big warp jumps. So moving on, we have the Votann itself nowadays and them. So basically, Votann are the most important part of the Leagues of Votann, obviously, but the kin are nothing without their core. Now,
naturally,
since the original phrase, the first ancestors, kind of became synonymous with the original supercomputer that they went with them, the first ancestors are, in a sense, the cores, the ancestor cores.
Okay.
And so, with the ancestor cores, that's one of the things they're referred to. They refer to the Votann, they're referred to as the ancestor cores. It's like one of the many colloquialisms. So in the way back when, starfaring, I guess the original, right? The name Votann serves as the most revered and celebrated of these ancient ancestor cores, and therefore is eventually adopted as just the phrase for them. But it's also as a cover. They refer to them as the Votann more as an entity than anything else, because calling it an ancestor core would probably bring the ire of the Mechanicus or other races.
Yep. Once people find out that it's core, it's tech, it's AI, people start asking questions, and you don't want people asking questions about your big AI core in 40K.
Now, in the early days of the core, each Votann had a special ring, and this ring would act as remote contact to the computer. It was known as an ancestor key, but they don't have the same connectivity to the cores as they used to. The old rings kind of had a psychic node that would implant into the wearer so they could remotely contact the machines. But now this power has basically gone to the point of entirely silence. And so in STEM, they work more so with something known as the Fane, which is one of the 4 pillars of the Votann. Now, as mentioned prior, the Votann are basically STC hubs with an unfathomable amount of data, right?
Yep.
But
they upload every dead Votann and put all of their memories, experiences. So I imagine these things are jam-packed with information.
Every dead kin.
Oh, right. Every dead kin. Yeah.
It always throws me off, too. It's like, oh, my Votann. No, your kin.
Yeah. So whenever someone talks about the Leagues of Votann, I'm like, oh, yeah, there are leagues of dwarfs, right? Those are the Votann. It's like, no. Big, scary AI core is the Votann.
Yes, these dwarves, they are the leagues, in a sense. But, of course, since one of the things it could do was upload the neuropatterns of the dead directly, uploading that person became less of a resource, and over 10,000 years, right, kind of a ritual. Sure. You upload your dead friend, that's a bit of a ritual. Unfortunately, the quote joining of the ancestors, because when you think about it, you're thinking old, a bit Norse, because obviously the Votann are very kind of a little bit Nordic in terms of how their culture and how their language and everything, and other cultures, because everything is kind of an amalgamation of multiple cultures in the world. It is in a sense joining. You're not just joining your ancestors because you're joining them in death. You are literally uploading your memories to the ancestor core. It's a literal combination. Unfortunately, doing so over multiple millennia has overloaded the systems of the Votann, especially with such repetitive, because they're clones, right? You're uploading the same thing over and over again in a very repetitive nature. This also might be one of the reasons why the Votann have a presence in the warp, because you are uploading millions and millions of very dim warp presences and entities into this AI core, almost creating like a small little warp bonfire.
Sure. I have a quick question.
Sure.
So when they're uploading, is it literally any kin that dies immediately gets uploaded, or is there a screening process? Because if it's oh yeah, this kin was maybe a janitor, we probably don't need his memories, and the AI cores are getting it max cap, and they're acting really funny, and they're taking longer to give us answers. Is there any screening process to what gets uploaded, or is it just you die, you go? That's just how it works as a kin.
I would not 100%. I would assume all of them, because every kin has a very specific purpose it is born for, in a way, And also, they also have the Iron Kin that tends to do most of the menial stuff. So there probably won't ever be a janitor kin. It'll be a robot.
Right. That's fair. Because they are specifically cloned to be useful and do a job, and I guess you probably wouldn't want to lose that.
Yeah, and I mean, in fairness, it isn't the first time an AI has ever had a warp presence. Eldar build their tech out of Wraithbone, and then there was also a time when a Castigator Titan was possessed by a demon, or there was a Mechanicum AI that was able to cleanse chaos. So it's happened before, but you assume the uploading of millions of cookie cutter clone memories has overloaded some of these Votans. especially combining that with extreme overuse and no system purging. It's made the Votann highly unpredictable and borderline on sentient.
Ooh, you definitely don't want your AI core gaining sentience in 40K. That seems like it is a nightmare waiting to happen. Yuck.
On the good side of things, at least they treat their cores well, unlike the Imperium.
Yeah.
Now, each league has at least one Votann. Some have more, particularly the Trans-Hyperion Alliance has 3, which is actually really unusual, and they often use it as a show of force. As stated here, the Votann name them all with Leet speak. So
Really?
the 3 here, I'll put it in the chat. The 3 Trans-Hyperion Alliance ones are the Verdun, VERD-4N, the Skull, SK-43L, and the Udor, URD-0R.
Oh, okay. Do those names have any is there like a Nordic or Norse god that have those names by any chance? Because they sound like they could be like somewhat historical names. Because like there is Skull. That's like
it's like a toast in a way.
Yeah. So I wasn't sure if that was like part of the naming scheme where it's just like actual like Nordic stuff, but done in Leet speak to be kind of like, hey, our AI cores are, I'm
not 100% sure. I'm not versed in my Nordic history enough to fully know.
That's fair.
And I don't want to make the history majors crash out again.
1914 was World War I.
Now the Udor, Old Norse fate, is one of the Norns in Norse mythology. Yeah.
Hey, okay. So there is a little something. That's cool.
The Votann, of course, still operate to this day, but the volume of uploads and corruption have made anything outside of their very basic functions highly unpredictable. It is, imagine having a family computer back in the day and overloading it with LimeWire downloads, hundreds of copies of the same video game, adding Bonsai Buddy to it, and then attempting to communicate with it by speaking into your computer mouse like Scotty did in the San Francisco plexiglass factory in Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home.
Oh, I love that one too. Oh my god, I love that Star Trek movie. That's so great.
Can you do the bad Scottish accent?
Hello, computer. Like that? Talks into the little mouse.
I'm sorry. This, in quotes, a reference DK will get and be surprised by, likely resulting in him talking about whales in a bad Scottish accent. A normal response to the Star Trek IV reference.
Thank you, expert. I was going to go for nuclear vessels. This is not whales.
This is fantastic. This is excellent. This is so good.
Was that actually something the expert put in there?
I literally copy pasted it. He hit you. He hit you with the soul read from Beyond the Void.
Because I probably would have started talking about whales at some point. If we kept talking about Star Trek 4, I probably would have.
That's so funny. Also, Shai does confirm all 3 of the names of the things are Norn references. They're all Norns in the Norse mythology, so makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it fits the prompt.
Also, very. I mean, Warhammer does not have subtleties, so it's it's very clear.
It's more subtle than they usually are because they bothered to hide it with Leet speak.
That's true. That's true. So moving forward from there, the more important thing is how do the kin become so. Basically, the Votann may not answer a question for centuries, or they provide the answer to the wrong data. It's become so corrupted and so incongruent that how do the kin comprehend it, and how do they translate it? So therefore, they need to be specialized. And how do kin become specialized? So that is the Crucible, right? The cloning area.
Yeah, I was going to say, you program your clones to be adepted in, I assume.
That is exactly the case. You are going to the Galactic Core. You are a fleshy, weak... sorry, you're so squishy. How are you supposed to get a decent grip?
I don't get that one. I'm sorry.
Oh, no? Okay, Shy gets that one, right? Okay, good. Shy got it. It's like these two... Dude, I'm so Mass Effect pilled. It's these two random Krogan hanging out in the Citadel in Mass Effect 2 talking about, like, banging an Asari, and they're like, it's too squishy. I don't know how you're supposed to... It's not... etc.
That would be a Krogan take on banging an Asari. That's fair.
Yeah, that's fucking funny. Anyway, so in order to... Obviously, humans, squishy, weak, die easily. If you're going to live in the Galactic Core, you are going to need to make humanoids that are very resilient to this. So, the dwarves here, the kin, are not just like your typical dwarves. They are literally genetically bred, or cloned, I guess, to be resilient to this very inhospitable environment. They have bones and muscle mass that are notably denser. They have higher white and red blood cell count. They are specifically modified with a high intensity task in mind. They're not just... This is not just evolution, because there really kind of isn't any. This is a plucking at the genetic code in the cloning process to make them good at this.
Yeah, this is straight up genetics. This isn't like an evolutionary thing. You are pre-programmed to be strong and fit for this life. And they have really cool armor.
Would this be classified as eugenics? Or is eugenics more of like selective breeding? I don't really know the technical definition of that one. I'm just going to go play Endless Space 2 and play more Horatio.
I've never played Endless Space because 4X games, I don't have enough wrinkles in my brain. Endless Space is a 4X game, right? With the
yeah, no, you're correct. You're correct.
Okay, cool.
It's good.
The silence may be like, oh no, do I not know this game?
No, you got it right. But so these genetic mutations, though, these specialized ones are often known as clone skeins, SKEINS, clone skeins. I know that's supposed to be skins, but just spelt funny, but clone skeins, I guess. The thing is, they often have a bit of an unexpected side effect. Now, the clones created tend to have a super, super dim warp presence. Very, very light. And therefore, they do not experience uncontrolled psychomutations and are much more difficult to be swayed by the ruinous powers. Chaos always gets their way somehow, but it's just much more difficult.
Sure.
Since
Because in fantasy, there's Chaos Dwarfs, so I was like, are we bringing that over to the Votann, or probably not?
I mean, I would be shocked to say that like there aren't any Chaos Corrupted Votann. Warhammer's been pretty good at getting rid of any kind of like blanket nose, you know? There's very, very rare do they ever have like a blanket, this will not work. So I'm sure there's some because it's small, but there. However, these clone scheme manipulations can do weird things like give them physical mutations. Sometimes like mangled skin is a big one. You ever see like the dwarves? They kind of look like they're all like their faces look like cavernous, kind of really scarred up looking,
Mm-hmm.
They can have like weird body odor is one of them. Like these just create mutations in various ways.
So that's not because they're just battle hardened. That is just like a cloning defect. Am I getting that right?
Sweet Home Alabama,
Oh, okay. All right.
No, genuinely, it is.
Yeah, no, I get the reference, but yeah, that's yeah. Oh no, I hate this shot. I was about to be like, oh
lines.
Yeah, that's
say the line, Clem.
In Warframe with the Grineer, because the Grineer are being cloned, and the more times you clone a copy, the worse and worse it gets. And as a race, they're dying out or they're getting worse because cloning a clone, you only last so long. Okay.
Now, in fairness, this is not an issue that the Votann. Now I did it. That the kin have. The kin see these genetic abnormalities as a badge of honor. It's a point of pride. And they're just abnormalities. They're not like deficiencies. Because in a sense, if they get these kinds of abnormalities, this is a blessing from the first ancestor. And it goes along with the other known first truth, which is the kin have been cloned from the start, that they have been and always will be clones.
Huh. So some kin gets cloned and their defect is just horrible body odor. Everybody's just like, wow, he's so blessed. I'm so blessed. I smell like raw onions sitting in the sun.
Yeah. I mean, kinda.
Damn. It's just sorry when you mentioned body odor and then you're like, oh yeah, they love this shit. I was like, oh.
I mean, it's like this is a thing that the ancestor core gave them, so it is what it is. You know?
Yeah. Fair enough.
Now the clones themselves are obviously made in the Crucible, which is hailed basically as a holy device. And it's to be defended at all costs. It's the most important of the four. Well, somewhat. I guess the hearth would be because it's like a power generator, but you know what I mean. One may think that such a rapid turnaround of the clones in a short time may create some kind of like existential conflict, but not really, because everyone is made for a very specific task. So you know what you're there for. The more interesting part is, you can't make matter from nothing, right?
That's true. You gotta laws of equivalent exchange, huh?
Yeah. So because of that, you will need to get your stuff from something. And the Votann especially are known for using every last bit of every last resource. A quote here from the actual book about the Tyranids. It says, the bioship would be claimed piece by piece, every component down to the last drop of ichor and grain of bone dust. That matter would become part of the third ice kindred supplies, and from them it would disseminate across the URSR and then into other leagues. Eventually, some of that material indirectly would end up with the Ember and feed the crucibles of another generation of kin. They would grow, live, and die, and turn their constitute matter. And in turn, their constitute matter would be reclaimed and nothing of the bane would be left behind.
Wow. So they just, anything they conquer, they dismantle piece by piece and use it as resources, like you said, yeah.
When you're in the Galactic Core, everything has to be used.
That's true. Waste not, want not.
Yeah. What was, they have a quote about that, about like using everything. I forget how it goes, but yeah, I mean, the kin, if they destroy a Tyranid bioship, they will take all of the genetic matter and biomass from it, like the Nids, and use it to make more of them.
I guess the next question is, how exactly do the crucibles work? Like, you just put it all in a blender and slurry it up and use it as like cloning material?
Well, the crucibles are kept sacred by a group of caretakers known as the Ember, EMBYR. They're sworn defenders of the crucible, and for the most part, they participate in the functionality of it. In a sense, they actually act as like a medical capacity as well for injured and dead kin. They're like kind of coroners. They assess the dead, and which of the dead can be uploaded to the Votann and which should only act as biomass. But they basically the ones that run it. They run the machines. I don't think there's necessarily like a particular discussion on how they're run, but they are the ones who do it.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Now, that is one of the major aspects of it, but there's also the other one, which is the Fane. And do you remember what the Grimnir are?
They're the ones that actually like commune with the Votann, right? Because Votann are so overloaded with information that like it takes a long time for them to process anything. It takes a long time for them to give the answers, and they're kind of like the only ones that can actually communicate with them, right?
Pretty much, yeah. They communicate with a Fane. And also the Grimnir are referred to as a type of living ancestor because they're considered very, very important because they're the ones that communicate with the ancestor cores themselves.
Mhm.
Now, way back in the first edition of 40K, living ancestors were the psychers of squats, way back when.
Mhm.
And now these are living ancestors, and they happen to also be psychers. The main thing is that whatever they use for their clone scheme gives them a bit more of a psychoactive genetic trait for them, particularly they're built for that reasoning. Also, their staff notably has some barrier tech, so it's called an ancestral warding stave. And so, it's like they're like little psychers and stuff, but since the Votann are no, damn it, I keep doing it now. Since the kin are so careful around the warp stuff, that stave in itself is basically like a warding thing. It's used to kind of keep themselves safe and,
Right.
use barrier tech.
So theoretically, the kin could clone as many pseudo-psychers as they wanted.
Yeah, I
Theoretically.
mean, in a sense, but it's less about the kin. Normally, if I recall correctly, the Votann help with the cloning process. I think that either the Votann or the Crucible, a combination of the both, they're like, hey, we want this. The Votann makes the clone. It's actually one of the reasons why the named character Uthar the Destined is interesting, because he popped out along with like the most powerful blade ever, the blade of the ancestors. And because of that, he's kind of sitting there like, shit, man. I guess like I'm the Destined because it popped out with me, but I'm just kind of a guy.
Yeah, I mean, the Votann wanted you to have it, so that's your purpose. Yeah, I guess I thought the Votann was a separate thing, and the kin were just like, oh, we need this, so let's just go make it. I didn't realize the Votann had to like, I don't know, approve the cloning, but I guess it makes sense. It's literally the central hub of their whole civilization, right? So
Yeah, and if they could just like make whoever the hell they wanted, they would. But the Votann are the ones who kind of like choose when and where and who gets popped out. So the Grimnir are rare, obviously. And they communicate with the Votann utilizing the Fanes, which are kind of like a holy altar of sorts. It's like a sort of a lesser computer console, and that console connects directly to the Votann themselves. And this allows them to transmit data back and forth, process the information, but often the Grimnir are constantly upgrading these Fanes with more and more devices and importance. Now, how these things actually work, we don't really know, because it's been lost to time, like everything.
sure.
But even with that, they end up basically utilizing these kind of upgrades and modifications so much so that a Fane can actually be upgraded to become so strong, they basically become a Votann.
Oh, that's kind of a big deal. They can become like a walking Votann?
You can upgrade a Fane to become such a strong computer console that it becomes a Votann, which in itself is a massive point of celebration. However, the opposite can also happen. A Votann can become eventually so overburdened and broken that it can become downgraded to be nothing but a Fane. And in that case, that's a setting of extreme mourning and devastating effects to the Votann and the kin themselves.
Oh, yeah, that's got to be a huge loss. You are essentially losing your ancestry. Like, whatever league has that Votann that downgrades, you've essentially... Ooh, that's a huge blow.
Yeah, that's purely awful. So, with that, kind of moves us over towards the other part of the Votann that everyone loves, the Ironkin.
Okay.
Robots.
The Among Us looking robots.
The Ironkin are awesome. They're awful. Sorry, not awful. They're awesome. My bad. Wrong word. I love the Ironkin as well. They are super adorable. Now the major part is that here's the important thing. Ironkin are AI. They are silica animus. They are 100% fully sentient machines. It is literally the purest form of heresy. There is no discussion about like the Necrons where they are people, but they're soulless and they're technically AI, but there's a soul in there. Kind of like these are literally just AI machines.
Yeah, but that one's wearing a jacket.
He is.
Hey, boy, you got a jacket, you got shoes? That can't be heresy.
He's so cute.
Yeah, and he got a big gun? Like surely that's not heresy, right? No way.
So the Ironkin are fully self-aware. Like if you were thinking of an AI, like this is literally beep boop robot. I am like a person. I act like a person. I talk like a person. I am literally you, but robot.
Oh boy.
Now, the thing they're mainly noted for is that thing on their head. That is a cerebral unit, or CU. It is the big metallic helmet thing. It is basically where everything is. It's where it's all knowable. It's where all of their stuff is, their mechanics, their brain, the whole part of them is in that helmet. It's basically indestructible. It's extremely hard to destroy. So long as it's undamaged, an Ironkin can be rebuilt from destruction, which is very, very handy.
Yeah. I would imagine it has to be super well protected because that is where everything of importance is.
Yes, and while they are self-aware, they realize that their mechanical presence is off-putting, especially to the Imperium. So to counter this, they occasionally project a kin-like face onto the interior of the CU, making it look like a kin that's wearing a dusty helmet.
Oh, no way. That's so cool.
It's really funny. They basically do the Apple Vision Pro face onto the interior of their helmet.
So if they're ever around like the Imperium or something, just don't worry, there's a guy in here. I'm just a really tall kin. Don't worry about it. That's funny.
Well, not really tall. They're still short as hell. They're still like kin sized.
Oh, okay. Because the minis make them look kind of big. Like
no, they're still short as hell.
Oh, okay, cool.
But it does make them look like that, and it's a little suspicious. But so far, it hasn't really blown their cover, and it's working out. Now the Ironkin also serve as an Ironkin Wayfinder. Which is basically the Imperial navigator on a void ship. They're able to process the push and pull of the warp on the Geller fields of the ship. And so the main thing that the Wayfinders and the Votann do when they do warp travel is they do very light, effective, small jumps. Think warp drive, or think jump drives in Mass Effect, or think like The Expanse. Very small, like pew 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 kind of thing.
That's right. I vaguely remember making a Star Wars reference when we first talked about this, when they did like the light speed jumps, except those are very dangerous.
Yes, I mean basically the whole point for this thing is that like the very small jumps it makes them much slower, but it does make it significantly safer.
Yeah, less time you spend in the warp, the better.
Yes. And this is also very, very important, as Shai pointed out, the Ironkin are Ironkin. They are treated as equals.
Oh, okay. Well, that is very different from how robotic servants, servicers, are usually treated in this 40K grim darkness.
Yes. I mean, it is massively different.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a huge part of it. Like it's important to have that level of care when it comes to this kind of model, so to speak, or whatever you want. You need to make sure that you like are treating all of your kin the same, especially when they act like people.
Oh, definitely. I guess especially with the Ironkin, like, they do act like people. They do so much important stuff for you that it's like, probably better that, we don't treat them terribly and segregate them and make them want to rebel, because they are sentient.
There's also an important thing. Since the kin themselves have a very low warp presence, it's rare for them to fall to chaos, obviously. But the Iron Kin have a unique issue against chaos. They don't have a warp presence. They're machine. But there's a certain dripped out guy named Versace that that loves machines. And here is a quote from Sergeant Adija of the Cadian 97th. I didn't trust the squat folk from the start. How the governor approved their contract is beyond me. The worst of them were the metal ones. Nothing more than machines in armor with not a shred of the organic about them. It sent a shiver down my spine to see them move and talk just like they were alive. The kin, as the squats call themselves, were tasked with holding our left flank. What happened after that, Throne only knows. Some say their steel brothers turned on them, sprouting mutant swords and coiling tentacles. I'd never seen squats spooked before, but the betrayal shook them to their core.
Oh, so it has happened.
Oh, I mean, Versace probably got his hands on a bunch of Iron Kin and made them sprout tentacles and horrible chaos shit and murdered people.
Ooh, I honestly, when you first started that quote, I was like, oh yeah, this is just going to be, the Imperium being very uneasy around AI. I didn't think we actually had written like example of, yup, he absolutely got his hands on some and they went crazy.
Yeah, Versace does some crazy shit.
I'm sure he could run roughshod over the Votann too, with just like the way they are and the way their society is run. Oh, he could have a feeding frenzy.
Maybe. I mean, there's a lot of robot stuff, but also they have a limited warp presence, so it might have like a little bit of catch-22 on that one.
Yeah.
Well, so moving to the final bit here, a little bit more about the kin culture itself, and also where we get into like some of the grimdark in this part, because so far, I mean, the kin are just like void sailing dwarves,
Yeah, space dwarves. Yep.
However, the big shift from interstellar adventurers to a more insulated culture has had a major effect on the kin. And as time goes on, the purpose in the setting becomes a bit more clear. So in the world of Warhammer Fantasy, obviously, dwarven culture is highlighted by them being proficient and well-regarded craftsmen and smiths with a stereotypical ability to hold judges.
Yep. Grudge.
Did I say judges?
Yep.
Sorry, I was thinking of the Book of Judges, Book of Grudges. In 40K, they have judgment tokens, so that's why I.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. That's a good meme, Shy. I like that one. The price of nickel rose 7.3%. Where you're destroying your planet. Now,
probably would.
The grudge aspect transcends settings, of course, but the kin in 40K are actually known less for crafting and more for trading and scrapping. Now, don't get me wrong; they have the forge, which is a huge part of their the forging stuff. But the kin are known to monitor the borders of the Galactic Core to find the remnants of damaged ships, so they can scuttle them and strip them for all of their resources. When it comes to the more organic, like Tyranid bioships, they treat them almost like how a whaler would treat a whale, stalking them for days and eventually wearing them down so they can harvest them. Now, this doesn't mean that the kin don't participate in manufacturing, of course. There are craftsmen of the kin. They're known as the Brokir, and the members of the kin society maintain fabricators known as A.N-VYLS, or anvils, because we use leet speak here.
Yep. Totally subtle, very well hidden, G-dub.
Which, of course, is used with the various robots and Ironkin to help them further their goals. They're super dedicated to improving upon their technology and their old schematics with unique processes. And these marked perfections and unique designs act as new STCs that can be used by the kin and used throughout the Galactic Core themselves. Though it is a bit more internal than the mercantile and harvesting aspect of the kin society.
Mm-hmm.
The purpose of all the harvesting is quite simply to make a profit. And one of the strongest aspects of kin society is the idea of a contract, with dire consequences should that contract be broken. The kin have devices on them called mercengrams, which essentially act as an on-the-fly contract binding app. When a deal is struck, the deal is entered into the mercengram, and the kin involved in the deal connect the devices to seal the deal and put the contract in the books. It even makes a neat little chiming sound when it's confirmed. The mercengram is then brought back to their respective holds, and the deals are uploaded and solidified. The standards and practices of trading are maintained and monitored by guilds, which act essentially as independent commercial groups that work to make sure that fair trade practices are maintained throughout the kin. This can also be done to a very, very reckless manner. If a deal is not followed through as outlined with the guild, the retribution can be almost reckless and violent so that the deal is completed. Notably, there's an instance in the novel where a guild quite literally turned off the shields of a hold ship to assure that the transaction was completed.
Oof.
They were dilly-dallying, they were being a problem, so they shut off the shields and said, maybe you should hurry up a little bit.
Yeah, that does sound very dwarf coded, with the importance of like deals and making sure they're followed through. Because I think in fantasy, like they have a similar thing where it's like if you make an agreement with a dwarf, you better see it through. And they have literally killed entire villages because you skimped down on a little bit of the payment. You were $3 short. We're killing your whole village.
I mean, in a sense, it's. So, if you're curious about where the grim darkness of the kin and the Votann arrive, it's a capitalistic grim darkness. Though the guild is not really a political body, they do have. though it is not a this is topical. Though not a political body, the guild does have a very heavy say in the kindred's governing council, known as the Hearthspake, which also consists of military officers and the Grimnir. Besides, known as lobbying, or also perhaps very wealthy individuals may have more say on government facilities than they should. Councils are the primary means in which the kin operate and make decisions, and the most significant one is the Votannic Council, which is a governing council of the entire kindred and is made up of the most senior members of any kindred, including the High Call, the Brokir Forge Master, and the Lord Grimnir. At any point in time, the High Call was once viewed as the undisputed ultimate leader, but it has since changed it to have a bit more of a checks and balances.
Okay.
So now decision-making on a council level can be further expanded upon if the call decides to command the weighing of a decision. In the event of what is called the weighing of a decision, the council quite literally brings out a scale to debate and physically weigh a decision.
Oh, they physically do it. This isn't like a metaphor for it. They actually. All right, cool. On the nose. I kind of like it actually.
I gotta scroll back up because I gotta find that quote that I love from that Shy posted. You misunderstand, human. I am not here to debate. I am not here to compromise. What you see as yours, I am taking for my kindred. You want to bargain? Torek, unholster our means of negotiation.
That's very Fifth Element code.
It is.
We're sending someone out to negotiate. Boom. Headshot.
But
where they learn to negotiate like that.
In the weighing of a decision, they debate by literally putting their weight where the scales land until their decision is decided. It is metaphorical, but also like physical. It is a kind of ritualistic. And so the weight of each kinship has its own say, you know?
Mm-hmm.
As for a more casual overview of aspects of kin society, it's very apparent that the kin live fairly well, all things considered. The ships are loaded for long distance journeys. They have fresh lab grown food. They have showers similar to the sonic showers in Star Trek. They use like sonic vibrations instead of water.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The most notable beverage in the world of the kin is brew, BRU with an umlaut. There are dozens of varieties of the liquid substance, ranging from the mainstay Nutri rations for soldiers and miners to, and I quote, devastatingly alcoholic recreational beverages. I do not recommend any of them to be consumed unless you have a kin constitution, said by a rogue trader individual.
Okay. Very dwarf coded. Love it. Love it. Love it.
The range of drinks remind the Nuka-Cola of the Fallout world, and the extent of it isn't really known for a while. Like, it's the most online version equating it to the Iron Brew soda from Scotland, which I have had, and it is fucking amazing.
Never had it. I've only heard about it because it was, well, people were drinking too much beer and they were just like, oh, we got to make an alternative that tastes good and it sounds tough and right? Or something like that.
I don't really know, but I just had it and it's amazing.
Oh, okay.
In the book, The High Call's Oath, it's stated that the drink is served frothing hot, their own variant of it, and the primary character drinks it out of a chalice made out of an Eldar skull.
Oh, that's so metal.
Which is pretty hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
Now, in kin culture, the purpose of living with kinship is to live their life to their fullest extent. One of the greatest crimes a kin can commit is wastefulness and laziness. The kin do not believe in a prison system. They find it wasteful. So the ultimate punishment a kin may face is the inability to be returned to the Votann upon death, deeming themselves worthless to join the ancestors, which is often them being sent into exile, and then generally fading into obscurity. So the only thing worse is to not be remembered or cared for.
Yeah, you don't get remembered and your memories don't get to join with the ancestors, who that is probably the biggest punishment for them. We already talked about it a tiny bit already, but the main and major question for several years is what makes the Votann GRIMDARK? Now, we talked about earlier, and this niche tends to fit into the late stage. Wait, what the hell? That's a badass fucking image. Holy shit. I never seen that before. At first glance, I thought that was a Skaven, but like, is that, I'm assuming that's just like a warp minotaur?
Chaos Beastman of sorts, looks like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Damn, they're getting whacked. They do look really stubby. It's kind of funny.
Also, on the topic of, how are the Leagues of Votann GRIMDARK? Like, I am of the mindset that not everything has to be an obvious, overt grimdarkness in 40K, right? Like, they don't have to have some, like, as they are, they're fine for the setting, right?
I would agree with you. I do genuinely would agree that not everything needs to be the awful, horrible Imperium-based things. But the tagline of the universe is, in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war.
True.
And so, to an extent, there absolutely does. Like there should be a certain level of dourness to it all. I mean, the Tau may have their own, enjoyment and stuff like that, but their biggest issue is, some of the other grim darkness, like their rigid caste society and, things like that. I do agree. Not everything needs to be like the hellish. You have variants. You can have the Votann on one side and the Drukhari on the other. There's a sliding scale.
Sure. And like, to some degree, like, the Votann are already kind of grimdark. Like, granted, are they, killing their enemies, carving up their flesh, and wearing them as a cape and making sentient screaming galleries? No. But it's not like they're overtly like, oh yeah, we're so pure, we're so ha 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 ha. Like, they have their little moments of, like, grinding everything down. They've got the AI cores and stuff. Like, they've got their elements to it.
They do. But obviously, it's a two-part here. The Votann factions themselves are very much a joke on late-stage capitalism, overworked hellscape archetype. And, you are massively overworked to serve your guild, which is a company. They literally have apps that force you into contracts on the spot. And if you do not fulfill your contract, they attempt violent rebuttals. There's obviously that big part themselves. But one of the big things is the more grimdark implication of the Votann themselves. So, as mentioned before, Votann are kind of viewed as gods, the ancestor cores over 10,000 years of this usual type of stuff, and are the cornerstones of the lives. A kin's life purpose is to do everything they can to serve the ancestors and eventually be uploaded into the ancestor core to join their ancestors. That is a kin's life purpose. However, the cores themselves are so overburdened and begin to collapse upon the weight of the data themselves. If you may remember, do you remember the tale of the Mad Core?
Oh, vaguely.
So, more tragic still is the fate of Emberg Agnar Block, who found themselves in the path of the tendril of the Hive Fleet Leviathan. They were forced to stand their ground when the Hive ships closed around in the hold. Hopelessly outnumbered, the kin fell to the last in their defense, yet the bitterest irony was yet to come. The Tyranids ignored the Votann entirely, leaving it buried alone in its pits upon a dead world. The accumulated pain and desolation of those who had fought, died, and been returned to the ancestors to keep their bodies from the hungry maw of the swarm flowed into the machine mind of the Votann and drove it insane, screaming in a never-ending screech into the warp and the void, creating a warp field, daring all to go anywhere near it.
Oof. Yep. Hey, we found some grimdark, Bricky, didn't we? We found a little grimdark.
The entire purpose of the kin, their life's goal, is to live a strong, fulfilled life worthy of the ancestors and to have that life re-uploaded into the Votann, which by doing so slowly degrades and destroys the Votann itself. And it breaks it down with a deep existential fear being a lack of purpose. The kin are clones created in very specific machines, and now those machines are becoming more unpredictable and derelict. And the more they upload themselves into the Votann, the more it breaks down and dies.
Ooh. Sounds like a self-fulfilling apocalypse.
Yeah.
It's the slow Ouroboros that's just constantly eating itself away, and I'm assuming nobody knows how to make more Votans. If all the Votans get overburdened, is that just the end? Because there's a finite amount of these things, right?
Somewhat. There are the Fanes that can become Votans. But the original ancestor cores are the original.
Yeah.
So you can in a sense get more, like the Fane can eventually become a Votann, but like not quite the same.
Yeah, it's not quite an ancestor core. It's like a pseudo Votann.
So the kin, in a sense, are grimdark because their entire existence is built off of a tangible and finite computer that is being destroyed by themselves. Everything that they live and die and care for is then being used to kill the thing that they live and die and kill for.
Yep, we found you found the Grimdark. Oh boy, that is
yeah. They are unwittingly murdering the thing that they kill for the whole time. And of course, like the tale of the Mad Core, that Votann was overflown by the dead people murdered by the Tyranids, and so then it has just completely ruined it.
Yep.
Like that is a Votann that will forever be lost because it has gone insane.
Yeah, even if you found it, there's no salvaging that. And that's probably like the worst fate for a Votann and everything, because it's useless. It has no use, no purpose. It's all alone. It is literally hell for those kin and the Votann.
Yep. Last topic, galactic relations.
Right.
Galactic relations. So they have relations with quite a few people in the galaxy. And the one they generally have the highest relationship with is the humans. like they have lots of conversations with tons of different trade partners, abhuman, straight up Xenos. The kin are acutely aware of humanity's religious fanaticism and their fear of technology. But they also just don't understand why they're like this.
They're just like, guys, look, we're fine with it. They're so inefficient, right? Did they just not quite understand like the Dark Age and the Men of Iron and the Rebellion or anything like that? And they're just like, oh, it's just because you built shitty machines.
There's a funny little thing here where there's like a conversation. It's like, it's a bird thing, said Grubin, sounding pleased with himself. Imperials love it. Pictures and sculpts of it everywhere. A type of pigeon, isn't it? Ark will arse, said Fierta with a knowledgeable air. They pray, that's what the name of it is, the Ark will arse. They pray to it sometimes, the daft numpties. I've seen them make a flappy gesture over their chests when they mention their emperor. Happen it's a holy gesture for them, like a salute. Do you reckon they'd mind if we flapped the Ark will arse at them when they get here? Oh, look, they've got the holy pigeon. They must be decent folks or something.
The holy pigeon is not something I was expecting to hear today, but I love it.
Also, I do like how they said they called them numpties. Very clearly, like, just being on the nose
Where
with the slang.
Where are they from? Yeah.
It's
Do you
great.
like that they can't pronounce Aquila, the Arquillas, and the flappy bird pigeon? They must be, oh my God.
Arquillars.
That's a great quote.
Yeah. They kin believe that their homeworld is Terra itself and that whole thing. But the biggest fear that they have is that is to keep that hidden, because they worry that the moment the Imperium thinks that the kin are humans, they might consider them to have divine right and ownership over the kin.
Got you. So they want to keep it secret. They don't want to seem human. They don't want to be like, oh yeah, because then the Imperium is going to be like, well, if you're human, then we have dominion over you. Everything you have is ours. You got to worship the Emperor. What's that funky core you got there?
Yeah, that's basically the big part of it all.
Mm-hmm.
One of the more tense relationships they have is with the Admech. Yes, the view of the Admech are known across the leagues. The Broke here disdain them heavily. And also the Admech disdain them, would disdain them were they to find out about the abominations of the Ironkin.
Yeah. That's a slippery slope.
Yeah, that's a bit weird and some freakiness, but they try to avoid the Admech as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
The Mechanicus.
Is there any record of them meeting?
Oh, they've done it plenty. The Mechanicus abhor them and find them to be abominations. They are a bit more familiar with kin history than most. Apparently, in the novel, a tech priest states his views on kin history by saying that the ancestors of the kin brought them to these ill-fated stars, only for them to be grown into stunted trolls.
Wow. Okay. All right. Yep. Little vitriol there. Little. Yeah. Okay.
As mentioned before, kin hunt Tyranids, almost like a nautical type thing. They're also known as the Bane or the Gene Killers, because they're just, it's the Tyranids. They're terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
The kin interact with Eldar. They have a lot of various names for them. The Heliosi, Ancients, Craig, Nostar, and Gnomes.
They call the Eldar Gnome.
Apparently. They have fairly cordial relationships with them. They do trade from time to time. And they find the Craftworld Eldari to be comically arrogant. And they try their very best to not speak to the Drukhari whenever they can.
Like most factions in 40K.
Relations with Tau are actually extremely common. Both the Tau and Imperium have classified as unique species, and obviously they are part of the kin. Relations with the Tau have been known for quite some time, and both the Tau and Imperium have classified the Demiurge as a unique species when they are, in fact, a part of the kin as a whole. Because I believe the Tau have the Demiurge, which I think are the kin.
Yeah, they were like after the squats got squatted, the only time you could find them was the Demiurge with the Tau as like a sub faction. I think it was in like Battlefleet Gothica, one of those.
I think so. I know that the Tau ion weapons were actually made by Votann, and they shared that technology with them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the ion weapons are a part of that as well, which is a fun little bit.
Mm-hmm.
The the kin despise orcs as the number one most. They hate them more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
They are unfortunately very difficult to deal with. The orcs once destroyed a Votann, and this resulted in a 500-year conflict because, of course, it did.
Well, I mean, sure. If you destroy, like, that's got to be the worst thing you could do. Like, if you're an orc and you destroy a Votann, or if you're any race and you destroy a Votann, that's got to be basically the worst thing you can do, and they're going to hunt you to the ends of the earth and probably try to genocide your people for it.
I mean, pretty much, yeah. That's about right. It's a very big part of that whole thing.
Oh yeah, for sure. I would imagine, as far as relations go, as long as you are amicable to trading, the Votann are probably going to be okay with you.
Okay, that makes sense. And I mean, yeah, like they're for the most part, like if you can trade, you're good, and you don't look too into it, you're good. Orcs, obviously, they're the exact opposite of the Votann. They're wasteful, they're reckless, they destroy everything, they hate them. Yeah. There is, of course, Necrons. They have the kin are known for mining, so they've encountered the Necrons multiple times. They normally involve them waking up a tomb world by accident.
I was about to ask, have they ever gone to a planet, started mining? Oops, tomb world.
Yes, very often. There are also instances of Necrons making their way back to the core to reclaim worlds there, as is assumed that they once flourished in the center of the galaxy, like the rest of the galaxy. So they're a little careful on that. And of course, there's the forces of chaos, which they just hate and they're confused by. They're like, "What the hell is wrong with you people?"
It's fair. That's a fair opinion.
And then there's the last bit, which is the smallest last bit here, which is simply, why are they back? Because they got some crazy stuff. Did you know that one of the in the Dawn of Fire novel, a kindred is currently in possession of a Blackstone fortress?
Oh, well, that's a handy thing to have. How'd they get it?
Don't know. They found it, and they're planning on scrapping it, but maybe they won't.
I love that the Leagues of Votann, the kin, could find a Blackstone fortress, and the first thing they think to do, which is very in line with what we've talked about today, is, oh, that's a big fortress of Blackstone. Scrap it.
Scrap it for parts.
Scrap it for parts. We need the resources more than we need some big dumb fortress that we're never going to use.
We make our own big dumb fortresses.
Yeah, maybe we make something better out of it than, use it to make armor or, forge something cooler. Yeah.
So the real question is, why are they back? And the very simple explanation is, well, the galaxy ripped in half. The Great Rift has jostled a ton of things. Particularly, it has a massive impact on the Galactic Core, and a ton of leagues were scattered around due to it, and also resulted in species that were non-contenders in the Galactic Core, like the Tal and Eldar, to be thrown into it. So this has forced the Votann to interact more frequently with outsiders, and less in terms of trade and more in terms of survival. So they have had to leave there a lot more often because of the Cicatrix Maledictum, and mobilization continues to intensify around. And now that their secret worlds are probably going to be getting attacked more now, so they need to be a hell of a lot more careful.
Okay. So in a nutshell, prior to the Cicatrix Maledictum, they could be very isolationist. They didn't really need anybody else, but now that there's the big tear, you kind of have to.
You kind of have to. You really kind of have to.
You kind of need it for survival. Yep. Okay.
And that's basically the new stuff we know about the Votann.
Hell yeah.
A lot of new things. Obviously, tabletop stuff. They have a very small amount of units, but they are very, very fun. They're a cool army. I own them. They're a lot of fun. I like them a lot. And for the most part, they're just they're a classic stat ball of an army. They're big, they're tough, they're slow, and they shoot really, really hard.
What was I gonna say? Like, are they pretty popular in the tabletop? Like, how exactly do they? Because, like, with Tyranids and Orcs, just like here, dice. With Sisters, you got your Miracle dice and all that stuff. Like, are they kind of like a unique faction at all, or are they just kind of like, yeah, you roll dice, you shoot, basic stuff?
They're often joked as the most 40K faction in 40K. They have data sheets and they have stats. You take those stats and you put them on the table, and those stats shoot very well because their stats are good. They punch well because they punch well. They're slow and they're tough. You don't get tricky dicky bullshit. You don't get like miracle dice. You don't get gene stealers popping out of the ground. You don't get to reanimate like Necrons. You don't get like weird dark god murder death. You have a gun and it shoots well, and you do that a lot.
Hey, sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes, if you're playing tabletop, maybe you don't want that fancy shit. You're just like, hey, gun, shoot, you're dead, move.
I mean,
I get it.
Honestly, yeah. That is basically all that's needed. You arrive, you shoot stuff, and then you just like keep it going.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Roll on, brother. Roll on.
Yeah. Roll Tide.
No. Yeah, sure, brother. Sure. Hell.
Yeah, brother.
Hell yeah, brother.
No, but like genuinely, they are just. If I would probably argue that the best army to get in 40K if you're a new person is Space Marines, because it has the most amount of like additional like secondhand eBay purchases. There's a ton of units. You can play whatever you want as the most support. But if you want like the most easy to play and understand and just put them on the table and play, I would say Votann are the best. They are very easy to paint. There's not a lot of them. They're not too expensive, and you just go and you shoot.
Nice.
And so it's very simple, and I think it's in a good way.
Mm-hmm. Very straightforward, cool looking, easy to paint. Yeah.
Hell
Absolutely. Yeah, brother.
Hell yeah, brother. And that's about it. I'm gonna go get myself a devastatingly alcoholic beverage.